everyone. Welcome to our podcast, Good Friends, Strong Families. I'm Angela.
And I'm Anna.
And today we're talking about what are you growing in your family? This is a good conversation to have because where we are and the time of year we're recording this, it is getting ready to be spring. It's not quite there yet, but it's getting ready to be spring. And this is really the time where people start thinking about planting. Are you a gardener, Anna?
No,
Okay.
I do go out every spring and weed my backyard because there's areas where the water, once it starts raining, all that stuff comes up. And so I have to do that a few times to get everything. So I will try to clear the weeds in the yard. Every once in a while we'll decide to plant a few new things.
Oh, that's nice.
But yeah, I don't.
Mostly
I
flowers.
had great aspirations at one point in my life to have a garden, and some things you just have to let go.
Right. I like that. I like that as an idea. Well, I plant things. I mostly plant flowers, and I only plant them like in like flower boxes on my porch because I like to look at them when I'm sitting there. And I like the way that, so I'll plant that. And my husband will plant more vegetables, fruits and vegetables kinds of things. So we eat really good, but I also get to look at some pretty flowers.
Yes, I love that.
Here's the good thing about today's topic, because when you're planting, there are several stages to it. One is you want to like prep the ground, then you also want to like plant good seeds or like, put the cute little plants in or whatever. But then also you have to weed out some of the weeds. You don't want them to choke out the really good flowers or plants or whatever. So today's topic is water or weed. What are you growing in your family?
Yes, I love it.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like you just kind of mentioned, some things just grow. Like I said, I have to weed out my yard. I do nothing I do not plant weeds, but they grow. If I'm not paying attention, they will take over the stuff that we want. And so we do have to pay attention, and it's a really great simple parenting principle as well, what you water grows. And what you don't water and what you don't,
what you
give attention to. Yeah. And so we just want to use this kind of springtime, reset time, fresh start, all the cliche spring sayings, right?
All the spring things.
We can be really intentional with our families in this time too. And it's a really great time to just kind of refocus and think about, um, what are we spending our time on? What are we focusing on? What are we giving our energy to? What are we watering? So
that's so good. Well, okay. So speaking about watering, here's something really interesting. This is a really funny thing is that sometimes parents end up watering things that they don't actually want. So I think when you think about that in terms of behaviors, because that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about habits. We're talking about behaviors, those things that happen consistently in a family. But a lot of times we are just reacting rather than being really intentional. We're just going to use that as a word today. Intentional rather than being really intentional about watering the things that we want. We often spend the most time reacting to the things that we don't want, like whining, arguing, back talk, complaining. And what happens then is it takes so much of our time and attention that we're really are watering those things, and we're essentially fertilizing them with our attention.
Yeah, if those behaviors get all of or the majority of our attention becomes the fertilizer, and it just breeds more of what we don't actually want. And we know this on some level, right? It's kind of like the media knows this, right? Any attention is better than no attention. So it's like, and this isn't a new concept, but again, using this time to kind of reset and reevaluate what kind of behaviors have we been seeing the majority of. Well, why are we seeing so much complaining? Or we're allowing it, or we're feeding it, we're engaging with it. And so using this time to kind of have a little reset and say, no, I don't want to reinforce that. Because what gets reinforced gets repeated. And so if arguing gets attention, arguing grows.
Right.
And so, if a child's complaining about cleaning their room and the parent argues back and you have like this 10-minute debate about socks on the floor, the kid's like, I just got 10 minutes of my mom's time focused on me. Woohoo!
Yes. And it doesn't matter to them if it's negative.
Right.
It really doesn't.
Did we even notice that they completed their homework without any prompting?
Or here's something even better. What about the other kid that did their homework?
Right, right. So we've got to be aware. We kind of got to sit back and say, okay, what are we feeling in our home right now? What kind of behavior is taking the spotlight?
It just reminds me of this story when I was younger, probably multiple stories when I was a kid. And I had a sibling who was constantly getting in trouble. And I actually remember, it just now reminded me of a time that just one of many that I felt like so much of the spotlight and attention was on my sibling because they were always in trouble, and how it felt very lonely because no one was paying attention to the things that I was doing at all, never mind right or wrong. And so I did consider a couple of times, if I did this, then I could get that attention too. And so it does beg the question in a family, are you fertilizing the thing that's needing your negative attention to the detriment of the things that needed our positive attention?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
funny. Well, speaking of attention, this is something that I hear all the time, and I know you do too, because we're both family coaches. But when a parent says to us, I don't know why my kid argues so much, that really solves the problem of why that happened. Because if we watch, and we'll see this all the time in our class, where we'll see the interaction happening, then the argument becomes a conversation, a negotiation, sometimes a full-length courtroom drama. The behavior is a stage, an audience, a spotlight. And really, it's because kids are really incredibly smart learners.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. Yeah, listen to this. I found this. I thought this was really good. This was Albert Bandura's social learning theory. I thought this was really interesting. It explains that children learn behaviors through observation and reinforcement. So they repeat what works. If it works for them, then they're going to repeat it. If complaining gets a reaction, complaining becomes a strategy.
Yeah, that is definitely something that we need to be aware of. If we ever make a statement like the one that you just said, my kid always does fill in the blank.
Yes.
That is letting us know we need to step back and say, we're seeing this regularly, consistently, and we don't like it, but we keep seeing it. So why is that? And then we need to kind of walk ourselves back through and go and really think about all the times that that's happening. And were we busy? Were we in the middle of something? And then this behavior pops up. So really our kid is asking us for attention.
Yes.
And that's the way they get it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, it could be anything. We just have to really be aware of what we're reinforcing and focus on what we want to see. And this is one of the first skills that we learn in the Strengthening Families program. And it really was a mind shift for me. I feel like I grew up being really good at criticizing, noticing all the things that are wrong, out of place, or whatever. And that's because that was reinforced throughout my life, right? I still could probably teach a class on pointing out all the way people do things wrong, right? Because that was so embedded into just my life. And so when I was taught the look for and compliment the good, it was at a time where I was very overwhelmed as a parent. And I was just like, I don't know if I can find anything good. And so it was retraining my brain, and I had to look for it. And I think sometimes we just kind of let things happen. And then again, we notice the things that are out of place, the things that people are doing wrong. And so switching gears and saying, I'm going to look, even if it's just the smallest thing, right? Like, oh, thank you for, giving that toy to your sister, or thank you for putting your clothes in the, like any little thing. And obviously that's going to, depending on how old your kids are and whatnot. And hopefully you're better at this than I was. Um, but acknowledging that, because I think it's so easy to take those things for granted. And I think sometimes as moms, um, and as a stay-at-home mom, those everyday things that you're doing are just almost like taken for granted. And so it's easy to do that in the people in your home as well. It's just like, well, of course they picked up their clothes. They're supposed to. But again, we want to water and reinforce the good. And so we have to be the first. Sometimes we have to be the first ones to do that.
Well, here's something interesting. And I think that's really been the strength of the discussions that you and I have had, because we raised our kids very differently in a lot of ways. You were home with the kids. I was on the road all the time. You know what I mean? Like, so when I noticed the good, and yet both of us, I would say, had not only our own real challenges with raising our kids, but our own real successes. So
Right.
both of those areas, we've always maintained, you and I have always maintained, that the thing that you need besides God
Yeah.
and partner, but the thing that you need in order to raise your kids and to help you to see what some of those challenges could be and how you could, impact them, is you need a good friend. We've said that right from the beginning. Somebody who supports you, loves your family, that kind of thing. And so I think that that's why this whole idea of noticing the good is really important, because I wasn't always home to notice the good all the time. To notice the good meant that I had to be very strategic about the good. So I had to, for example, when I was traveling, and I didn't travel all the time, and really, we were really very blessed where, in particular, our youngest, but some of our kids as they were, older, but in particular, our youngest actually was able to come so many places with us. But I also had a mix of kids and stepkids. And so noticing the good sometimes meant that I would have to find out in discussion what the good was.
Right.
So I had to really be more intentional about using language that was, oh, you did that on your math? That is amazing. Whoa, you got that student of the month award. That's terrific. You know what I mean? Or I noticed that you didn't argue with your brother when he started taking your toys. So you have to be a little bit more, I would have to find it in conversation, but this is so powerful. And here's what I love about this. We say that all the time. Kids are constantly experimenting with behavior. But one of the reasons why our noticing is so important is because it's a brain hack.
Yeah. I love that.
So when a parent or a parenting adult compliments a child, and there are like specific things you want to do, like you want to notice it as soon as you can, or as soon as it happens, or as soon as
You learn about it.
yeah, exactly. You want to tell them exactly what they did right, like name it, say it out loud. And I'll give you an example in a moment. You want to give us a kid-centered reason why that was a good thing that they did.
Yeah.
And then you want to add a gentle touch to it. You know what I mean? So what that would look like in practice is, Anna, I'm so happy that you did your homework as soon as you got home from school today. Because you did that, you and I are going to be able to watch our favorite show tonight after dinner. That's amazing. And then you get a hug or a pat or a high five or whatever. And what that does is phenomenal, because you care about what I have to say. And I am, as my child, and I did follow that kind of pattern.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is, in your brain releases feel good chemicals when I've done that, so that the next time you come home from school and it's time to do homework, your brain remembers how good it felt and you're more likely to do your homework. That's powerful. Why wouldn't you use that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you're just furthering the connection that you have with that child. So I I love that. Like I said, it's why it's one of those first things that we teach in our Strengthening Families program. And it was for me, it was just so impactful because it changed the things that I focused on. Because again, it was so easy for me to like notice the negative, but it really helped train my brain to recognize the good, no matter how small,
Yeah.
nothing is too small or insignificant to acknowledge when it's the right behavior that we want to water.
That's so good. Okay, but we do sometimes have to pull the weeds because there are, just like our garden gets weeds,
Yeah.
our families do too. And I was sharing with you earlier today how families have weeds too. For example, in our family, I don't know if it's like the season we're in or maybe we're overworked or whatever it is. Sometimes as a family in the past, we've gotten like kind of complainy. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
we like take on that personality as like the complaining people. And it makes us look like we're really ungrateful, but it also makes us feel that way. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, reason for us to do that. So sometimes in every family, there are weeds that start to pop up. And because it almost becomes like the culture of your family, those weeds are a little bit harder to pull because somebody has to decide we're not going to do this anymore. Somebody has to, start looking at those like communication boulders that are in the way or those like habits that we have as a family. And in our families, there might be weeds we need to pull, but also there might be weeds that need to be pulled in our kids.
Right. Individually, like bad habits, I guess is one way to say it. And how you have to really be, I feel like we use this word all the time, but intentional, but also strategic because we've just talked about how what we give attention to grows. And
Right.
so, how do we address and acknowledge and hold each other accountable for these bad habits
Yes.
without continually feeding and watering those bad habits?
Yes.
And so those you really, and again, depending on the age and the habit specifically, um, having that family discussion, if you have a spouse, being on the same page first together,
Yes.
and then going to the family as a group or to that kid individually and saying, hey, we've really taken this time to kind of address that, like, gosh, we've allowed this to happen. Like, take the responsibility as a parent because you are in charge of your home. We've allowed this. Maybe I was overwhelmed at work or just, life's been busy. And I just realized that we've allowed this habit, this behavior to occur. And we don't like it because of X, Y, and Z. It's disrespectful. But also because we know it's not good for you. It doesn't feel good to always be the one that's complaining. It doesn't feel good to feel ungrateful and feel like, that doesn't feel good for us. It doesn't feel good for the kid. And so we really want to address this and we want to help you switch it into something positive. And so come up with a plan and accountability and ask them how they feel and ask them, as you progress and help them walk through that, keep checking in with them. Because again, I'm telling you, like Angela was talking about the power of like those compliments and how it kind of rewires the brain to want more of that. The kid's going to feel that and going to feel like, yeah, when you kind of just get in this loop and it doesn't feel good when you're stuck in that loop.
It doesn't. And sometimes I'm just encouraging us as parents. And if you're listening and you're like, oh, I have gotten into that like yelling or name calling or like whatever that is, there's absolutely nothing wrong with our kids. In fact, it's healthy for our kids to see us make mistakes and come out of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Make it right. Apologize. Those are really important skills that we teach our kids. They actually, we try and teach them, but some of those are caught more than they're taught. We want them to see us when we make mistakes to change that and to do something else. So it is a little bit for us as well, but then there are things that they're just going to naturally do. Like, I don't know how you feel about this, Anna, but I'm not a fan of eye rolling.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of eye rolling. And so, but my husband, he couldn't care less. He used to yell when the kids would roll their eyes. He'd yell, "Land shark!" I'm like, "What are you doing right now?" Because I hated it. And so I think that's part of the reason why you said, like, get with your partner, figure out like what do you want or not want in our family. You know what I mean? Like what's going to be okay or not. And get on the same page about some of that stuff.
Yeah.
If it doesn't bother you, but it bothers your partner, just support your partner, is really
Right.
But
Well, and I think it's important to communicate why. Like, that feels disrespectful. It feels like you are, um, I'm can't think of the word, but just dismissive. It feels very
Yes.
dismissive, like you're brushing me off. I don't feel understood. I don't feel like
Yes.
you're listening and really hearing me. If you could put your thoughts into words, maybe I could receive and maybe we can get somewhere. But if you're just rolling your eyes at me, you're really closing down communication because it feels like you don't even want to listen to what I have to say.
And then that's exactly what I was thinking of earlier when you were talking about how you have to give them the information. You actually, because there are some behaviors that you could ignore, right? Like,
Yeah.
and we teach that in Strengthening Families. There are behaviors that you can ignore those behaviors and they will go away. In other words, you don't have to pick them apart, every single bad behavior or every single like lazy behavior or whatever. You have to choose your moment. But I like when you talk about how you do that, but you first have to communicate what that is.
Right.
So if you're just walking around ignoring your kid all the time, but they have no idea why, how I've heard you say this before, but how do you say it when you're talking about whining? Like, I don't hear whining. How do you say that to them?
I can't understand that voice. If you could communicate more clearly, I could hear you better and maybe understand you better. Um, yeah, I just feel like I my brain like kind of shuts down when you speak like that.
Yeah, when you use that whining voice. And I think that's okay. Once you say, like, when you clearly say, I cannot hear or I will not hear you when you're whining. I want you to speak to me respectfully and with a calm and clear voice. Then the next time, and then you say, if you do speak like that, then I won't listen to your communication. Please change the way that you're communicating. From then on, it's perfectly fine to ignore when they're whining. You've already communicated that to them.
And if you've explained that you don't hear that voice, it's not an effective way to communicate. You want your kid to be able to communicate effectively. And if they go into a teacher, a job, a boss, literally any other scenario outside of your little bubble of your home, and they were to whine, they're not going to go far.
No.
So you're really teaching them effective communication and empowering them to use their voice. And
Yeah.
so once you've explained that and taught that, and again, depending on their ages, maybe you need to teach that lesson more than once. That's okay. But then ignoring that whining behavior, I've witnessed it with my own kids when we really had to address that. And it's almost like they catch themselves and they almost like reset and then they speak in an appropriate voice and in an appropriate way. I've witnessed that transformation, so I know it's possible.
Yeah, it is possible. And parents think, well, they're just going to outgrow it. Yes, but first you have to be specific about what they're outgrowing.
And give them the tools to communicate properly. Like, that's the other thing. Your number one job as a parent, I think, is teaching and training. And so,
Right.
Again, there is some age appropriateness of behaviors, but again, it should still be like a learning opportunity.
That's so good.
And if they keep getting what they want when they whine, then they will whine
And they will keep whining.
Past the age appropriateness of
whining. Way past it. I saw a kid one time in a Walmart. He was taller than his mom. So I don't know how old are you when you're taller than your mom, but he was taller and he was whining so loudly that I was probably like 20 feet away from him. And I was like, man, you're like a man-sized person. Why are you not saying? It was crazy. Yeah. But listen, okay. So when we do plant our garden, it's not just about planting weeds. I always think about like how I'm going to choose what plants I grow. I think about the ones from last year, the ones that I like, the ones that grew well, the ones that struggled but were beautiful when they finally came out. So in our family, we have to ask ourselves, what habits do we want to grow in our family? And I wanted to bring a few of these because I've mentioned like not having gratitude or like we felt like we weren't grateful. But you and I have talked about this on several episodes. We want to grow things like family dinners, helping with chores, being encouraging to one another. We want to grow one-on-one time and here's something that I want to mention. This was really interesting because one of the things that we really want to grow is weekly traditions. And talking about mental health, this is really interesting. Listen to this. I'm going to hopefully not butcher her name, but psychologist Barbara Fiese found that family routines create emotional stability and stronger family bonds. So research on family routines and rituals shows that predictable family traditions. Okay, so we're talking about these are weekly traditions, things like shared meals, weekly activities. Like for us, it was like always Friday night pizza. And Saturday morning, we would always have pancakes and cartoons. We still do to this day. Our kids are all grown. And my mom will sometimes come to Saturday, but my husband and I will sit down and have pancakes and watch cartoons on Saturday morning. But if you have those predictable family traditions, it can help reduce stress and improve emotional regulation in kids.
Yeah, I love that. And that's kind of when it's really easy when our kids get older, and especially in those teen years, it's really easy to let those things fall away because we go, oh, they want to do things with their friends. So it's really important as parents to kind of hold on and reestablish some things. And it's okay for those weekly traditions or those things to change. We've had seasons where, based on my husband's work schedule, because it's changed many times over the years in the line of work that he does. And so our free time has changed. Sometimes it's been, when we were homeschooling all four kids and my husband had Fridays off, we could go for like an afternoon walk every Friday.
Yes.
That's not what our life looks like now. And so and that's why it's, again, that spring reset mindset is sometimes life happens. We've had these great habits, these great routines, these rituals, but then life threw something at us and they that didn't work anymore. It wasn't that's not what it would work with our life. And so we've had to like regroup and say, okay, well, we can't do that right now, but what can we do? What new thing would work for all of us? And when can we do it? What pocket of time do we have weekly where we're all together? And so yeah, it's don't lose hope.
I like that. Don't lose hope. I would also say swing with the situation you're in now and not what you wish it would be. In other words, if you're in a place where you're struggling or, we're talking about things, even like when we talk about family traditions or whatever, and you're like, we're like running a mile a minute, or like my kid is like really angry and yelling at us all the time. And that doesn't sound like fun. You know what? You're in the reality you're in right this minute. And we've both been in those realities.
Yeah.
And they are just seasons of our lives. And so you want to start where you are right now. And so you just ask yourself, like, are there weeds we got to pull? Are there seeds we got to plant? What habits do I need to change? What habits do I need to help my kid change? Because if we continuously repeat those things, the good things, the small things, that's our culture. And really, our strong families don't appear overnight. They grow by one habit, one conversation, one moment of attention at a time. If you realize you're giving all the attention to the negative stuff, spend some time this week watering the good stuff. Like set yourself a timer. Make sure that you think about that. Write it on your, I literally would have sticky notes on my bathroom mirror that were like coded. So I knew what I was, so if a kid's using my bathroom, they're not like, tell your kid Jack that you like them today. You know what I mean? But I would have like sticky notes, because these are habits for them. They're habits for us too. So this week I would say try watering something really good and let us know if you do. We want to know.
Yeah, absolutely. And all the resources that we've talked about throughout this episode, we've got links to in the show notes. So we hope that you utilize the reminders for looking for and complimenting the good, the communication boulders, those things that we want to weed out and stop. And then we even have a handout about how to establish a happy family ritual, because that's so good for everybody's mental health. Thanks for listening, friends. We hope you come back and listen to the next episode.
Take care, everyone.